Good evening, everyone, here and in Zoom. Although the spring Ango with its theme of creativity is now ended, we are still discussing on Tuesday evening the book The Zen of Creativity by John Dido Laurie. And the chapter that was discussed this past week was titled The Zen Aesthetic. And I'll be talking about that tonight. The word aesthetic is defined as a set of principles underlying and guiding the work of a particular artist or artistic movement. And the example given was the Cubist aesthetic. Cubism rejects the realistic representation of scenes and people on canvas. They're coming from a perspective of multiple ways of seeing the same thing. Seeing faces from different angles depicted on the same portrait, for example. The word aesthetic comes from the Greek word for perspective. For example, the cubistic perspective or the Zen perspective. And so the Zen aesthetic may be thought of as expressions both in art and in practice of perceptions about life and the world that are meaningful and have value in our tradition. Or as the dictionary put it, underlying and guiding our tradition. Perception is the third of the five aggregates that Buddha talked about in explaining the sense of self, the five aggregates. Form, sensation, perception, formations, that is mental formations, ideas, concepts, and consciousness, that is self-consciousness, a sense of self that arises from an aggregation of life experience through the body, through the sensations, through perceptions, etc. And one last definition. The definition of perception is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. And of course this is quite relevant to the through the sense gate sesshin we did late last month at the close of spring Ango practice. Through the sense gates. Perception through the sense gates. So the first three aggregates of form, sensation, and perception, that is to say awareness, are intimately bound together with our direct experience, embodied, moment by moment, embodied experience of our life, including our experience of the world, in the world, with the world. Those three characteristics, those three factors, form, sensation, and perception, also occur as the first three of the four foundations of mindfulness that the Buddha taught when he was living 2,500 years ago. The four foundations of mindfulness being mindfulness of form, of the body, mindfulness of sensations, mindfulness of the mind. That is to say, the mind of awareness, not the cognitive mind. That's the fourth one. Mindfulness of the contents of the mind. Ideas, opinions, plans, memories. Those are all contents of the mind. The fourth foundation of mindfulness in Buddha's teaching. So the first three aggregates and the first three foundations of mindfulness are bound together in our direct experience before we abstract it and synthesize and put a name on it and think we know it and stop experiencing and seeing and discovering. Those aggregates and foundations of mindfulness are a couple of steps removed from direct life experience. But as Laurie writes in another chapter, we often, maybe even usually, choose knowing and figuring out and understanding and explaining and planning over direct experience. Yet in knowing, he says, we kill reality, or at least we make it inaccessible. So principles underlying and guiding the Zen aesthetic lean towards direct experience of wholehearted aliveness in this very moment, and lean away from intellectualization, knowing, narrating, planning, conceptualizing, expecting, anticipating, and so on. Away from killing reality or making it inaccessible, and towards the direct experience of our life right here, moment by moment, breath by breath. This guiding principle of direct experience over conceptualizing goes back to the very early days of Chan Buddhism in China. For example, in the story of our sixth Chinese ancestor, Huineng, who as a young man, an illiterate woodcutter, selling wood in the marketplace to support his aged mother, he heard a monk chanting this line from the Diamond Sutra. Develop a mind which functions freely without depending on anything whatsoever. This is from the Diamond Sutra, words from the Buddha. Develop a mind which functions freely without depending on anything whatsoever. In other words, develop an awareness which is free to function fully in this ever-changing moment, this moment of impermanence and interdependence, without depending on or clinging to anything. No thoughts, no explanations, no narrative, no planning, no remembering. Including not clinging to the idea of self, the aggregated self that has piled up over the decades based on experience, memories, plans, traumas, feelings, relationships. develop a mind which functions freely without depending on anything whatsoever. Upon hearing this, Huining was greatly awakened. And he went and found our fifth Chinese ancestor and studied with him and received the seal of approval. Simplicity is one of a handful of Zen aesthetic themes that Laurie writes about. In the arts, it's seen in a few brushstrokes of black ink on white paper, a few lines of words in haiku or other poetry. Also simply done, with nothing added, nothing extra, just that. There can be a tendency of seeing the Dharma that has so many sutras and seeing Zen practice with so many books about Zen to see it as being very complicated, hard to figure out. But at its core, it's really very simple. Just this, right here. With everything. Mushin Roshi has said to me more than once, it's simple, isn't it? We do Zazen with a variety of practices. Counting the breath, following the breath, body awareness, listening to sound, for example. But the name of one of our practices includes the element of simplicity, and it's called shikantaza, just sitting, simply sitting. Just open awareness in the body right now. Simply maintaining the Zazen posture, placing attention in the core of the body, the base of the abdomen, the core of direct experience of being alive. Letting go of recurring thoughts, self-references, self-centeredness. Breathing in everything, breathing out everything. With open, alert awareness. And repeat again and again. Laurie writes that such simplicity allows our attention to be drawn to that which is essential, stripping away the extra. Allows our attention to be drawn to that which is essential, stripping away the extra. All that extra noise that's not birds or wind or breathing. And though Zazen may be simple, it provides access to profound Dharma truths about existence, about impermanence, interdependence, and no self, about Buddha nature, about our own Buddha nature. And not only simplifying one's Zen practice, but more broadly, simplifying one's life is in accord with this Zen aesthetic. Dogen taught his students to set aside the concerns of the world and just practice wholeheartedly the Buddha way. We're not monastics. We're householders. And we can't just set aside earning a living and buying groceries and getting the vehicle repaired and paying the bills and taking care of our family and friends and voting and so on. We practice in the world. But we can simplify our lives in support of our practice. Oryoki is the meal ritual we do during sesshin, together, eating together. The Japanese word oryoki means just enough. Just enough food to sustain our practice. Just enough bowls to hold our meal. Just enough time to eat our meal. And just enough water to wash our bowls. We can cultivate oryoki in our life in support of our practice, in support of our vows of awakening and compassion. Just enough work to earn a living. Just enough shopping for what is really needed. Just enough social media to care for and be cared for by our family and friends. Just enough news to be aware and care for the wider world. Leaving more time and energy, more freedom to simply practice, to simply be for the sake of all beings. Laurie also writes about the Zen aesthetic characteristic of mystery. It can be represented in Zenga, Zen paintings, as empty space, such as space surrounding a plum branch, or space surrounding a moon hanging in the sky above a solitary monk or nun. Empty space representing that which cannot be represented. It can be present in Zen poetry as metaphors like mountains and rivers, grasses and trees, and the great earth. Images written to suggest that which cannot be described. The element of mystery thus seems to me to be closely connected to the element of simplicity in the Zen aesthetic. The two elements also seem closely related in our practice lives. When first beginning Zen practice, much can seem mysterious. The forms of Zazen, bowing, chanting, foreign words, what do they mean? The words in the chants and sutra, what do they mean? And koans, what is that about? As practice continues and questions are answered, and more questions will arise, of course, the foreign aspects become less mysterious. Gradually, the functions of the forms and practices, the chants and sutras, and even koans, the functions of those can take effect. The function of simplifying our mind, simplifying our mental and emotional activities that normally are just going constantly. Before practice, before entering the practice stream, it's 24/7. Awake, asleep, always going, always going. So the function of all of these practices and forms is liberation from obstruction. Obstruction of seeing life and self and the world clearly. Of awakening from the dream. Seeing beyond our habitual views of ourselves and our lives and our world, keeping us from exploring the great mystery of this existence, of our life, of this world. What is it? It's everywhere. It's right here. The simple forms of gathering together like this, sitting still in silence, bowing, chanting, walking Kenyan, attending sesshin, having oryoki, and doing samu together. These simple practices are refuges from our habitual concerns, our habitual reactivity, our habitual anxieties, distractions, obsessions. These simple practices support our intention to discover what's most important, what is, as Laurie says, that which is essential. They support us in discovering what's most important and helping us see into the great matter. This Zen phrase, the great matter. This matter of life and death and being. And to become intimate with the mystery that is continuously emerging now, animating our lives, moment after moment, breath after breath, sound after sound. The mystery that cannot be confined or captured or contained or expressed by any description, but can only be known through direct experience again and again. This life, this life of yours, your life. Again and again, endlessly, continuous practice. And may your practice go well.
4 great Bodhisattva vows can be found on page 5 of the chant book.